what happens when, in fact, there's no change? I think people get discouraged and they go home, and that's not what we want. No demands means no victories. You know, the example of solidarity, I think, really shows how small victories on concrete issues can start an upward spiral that gives a lot of energy to the movement. One of their first demands was to reinstate Anna Valentinovich, the crane operator who had been fired, and indeed, she did get her job back. She died in a plane crash about a year ago that took out the entire Polish government at once. The entire Polish cabinet perished at once in a plane crash. But she was actually flying into Russia, a Russia which was no longer part of the USSR. And I imagine she could not have imagined that. The movement started by asking for her to get her job back. It grew to workplace issues like legalizing independent trade unions. And it ended by demanding the overthrow of communism. That's a pretty big upward spiral. So the question is, I think, not just how do we think about the big, vague demands that Occupy might have, but how do we think about some concrete, small, and medium-sized demands that we could gain victories on and give the movement energy? We've talked about big things like have a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. But how about some achievable midterm goals like fully funding Head Start, which is the program that helps remedy educational disparities between poor kids and rich kids? It's the best investment of a federal dollar. Let's invest in 4 years. How about offering 104 weeks of unemployment instead of cutting people off often after 26 weeks? How about capping the total amount of interest that banks can collect on federally subsidized student loans to 30% of their value? Early this week, I made a loan payment on a student loan that I took out in 1987. I have paid 125% of the value of my student loans, and I still have 6 years to go. How about creating new jobs by investing in the repairs of dilapidated interstates and bridges and other kinds of crumbling infrastructure? There are things we can do in the short term. We can do things not just nationally, but locally. Like, how about at CU demanding increased state support for higher education to 20% of our operating budget? The state now provides less than 7% of our operating budget, and tuition pays about another 11%. The rest is all coming from federal contracts and grants. How about reducing class sizes in this institution to a maximum of 25? This year, I taught a class of 570 students. Is that what it was? Did we cut it down? Oh, so sorry. We got a reduction to 420. 420 students I teach at once. I cannot provide any of my students a reasonable or useful education when I am teaching them 420 people at a time. This is mass production, not education. We can provide need-based aid to ensure that low-income students can come to CU too. And we can provide living wages with benefits to all instructors, even our adjuncts. So we have small things that we could achieve here at the university that would give us steam to move on. And if we win the little ones, we'll gather energy for the big ones. The next principle I want to talk about that solidarity teaches about is find the choke points. You know, solidarity succeeded not just because of the power of their words, but because they found the bottleneck in their country's economy. State socialist economies really operated opposite from capitalist ones. In state socialist economies, goods are always in shortage. So because the government was the one that got to give out these goods that were in shortage, you know, you waited 25 years for an apartment, 19 years for a car, 11 years for a telephone. And because the government was giving all the goodies out, they're the ones that had all the power. So in Poland, production was the choke point. Shut off production, and you shut off the source of the government's power. So having a strike was a really effective strategy. In a capitalist economy now, where we have a surplus, as Barry told us, a surplus of cash, a surplus of labor, a surplus of products, a strike is not a useful tool because you just replace them with the unemployed. But we need to think about what the choke points are here. You know, the reason to occupy Wall Street in the first place, rather than say occupying Capitol Hill, was because Occupy Wall Street wanted to choke off the circulation of money through the financial system. They saw this as the key to the organization of power in our society. But I think it's worth thinking about other choke points. If Poland was a supply-constrained society, we are a demand-constrained society. That means we always have more products than we have people who can buy them. And having that surplus of products is dangerous for companies. If they can't sell the products they've invested money in, they can't survive financially. So if we want to start thinking about ways to confront the power of corporate America, we need to think about attacking consumption, not production. Occupy shopping. It means the retail system, which is driven by relentless consumerism, is the place in American life where the financial system depends on us. Just like in Poland, where if the workers didn't work, the system fell down. Here in America, the system will fall down if we stop buying things. And you know, the truth of that, the dangerousness of that idea, limiting our consumption, was really pointed out in 2001 when Bush's first response to the 9/11 attacks was go shopping. Right? Go shopping. Having the American consumer stop shopping was more dangerous than having terrorists attack. One of the things we're constantly being told by corporations and even by small businesses is shut up and shop, regardless of whether we believe in the values these corporations espouse. So I want us to think about, if the retail system is the vulnerable point of corporate America, how can we interrupt its effects? That's the place where we can have action. Sorry?
Delay Christmas.
Delay Christmas. Or have a really small one. With your family and the people you love, and remember what the hell is important. But along with limiting our own individual consumption, we can also come in to start to confront the system. And here I really am interested in the ways that Occupy is looking at distribution as a vulnerable node in the American economy. You know, corporations can't sell things that aren't in stores. And if they can't sell, they can't profit. So Occupy Oakland has been trying to shut down the Port of Oakland, which is the single largest point of entry where goods from China that are packed into containers enter into the United States. Shut off the Port of Oakland and you have closed down the bottleneck in the American economic system. We can start to create interlocking support for that movement by confronting other aspects of the distribution system at the same time. So I want to signal to you that on Monday, Occupy Denver will be having a protest at the Walmart Distribution Center in Loveland. I want to encourage you all to be there. This brings us to my last point. Live in the truth. The geographer David Harvey says that today, the party of Wall Street totally conditions the way we live our lives. He says, many decent people are locked into the embrace of a system that is rotten to the core. If they are to earn even a reasonable living, they have no other job option except to give the devil his due. They are only doing what the system demands, acceding to the barbarous and immoral principles and the practices of the party of Wall Street. Forget Republican or Democrat. It's one party. It's the party of Wall Street. David Harvey says, the coercive laws of competition force us all, to some degree or another, to obey the rules of this ruthless and uncaring system. The problem is